All right, I guess we can get started, and I hope you can all hear me well. Greetings to all of you from wherever you are joining us today. My name is Susanna Zamataro. I'm the Director General of the International Road Federation, headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, but actually joining you today from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. I am delighted to welcome you to this policy dialogue facilitated by the Climate Resilient Sustainable Road Pavement Surfacing, the CRISPS program team. CRISPS is a research project funded by the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office and managed by DT Global through the High Volume Transport Applied Research program. It's an 18-month CRISPS multidisciplinary research project that aims to demonstrate the technical and economic suitability of 3 global best practice road surfacing technologies for the range of traffic and environmental conditions of high volume roads that typically currently occur in low income countries, and those that are predicted to occur, of course, in the future. The CRISPS project includes partners from the University of Auckland, the International Road Federation, IRF, University of Putra, Malaysia, the Ethiopian Road Administration, and the University of Birmingham. CRISPS is one of a number of projects actually currently funded by the HBT program, and which aims to increase access to transport services, more affordable trade routes, and safer low carbon transport in low income countries. With the help of Agostina, who's from my team, who's helping us facilitate the webinar today, if we can move to the next slide, I'll quickly run you through the agenda of this webinar, which will last today for 90 minutes. We will have some welcome and introductions. I will then pass the floor to Dr. Gurmeet Gatahora from the University of Birmingham to provide us an overview of the CRISPS project and set the stage for this conversation today. Then we'll have a panel discussion, roughly 30 minutes, and then we will move into a question and answer session. So Agostina, if you move us to the next slide, let me give you some housekeeping rules and instructions on how to do so. If you want to comment, please use the chat function. But if you want to address any question to any of the speakers, please use the question and answer function. You will see that in your Zoom navigation bar. So chat is for comments or to share information, but the questions, please use the question and answer function to put them forward. And please also indicate if you are specifically addressing your question to one of the speakers. If you're using social media, you see on the screen, and I think Agostina will put that also in the chat, the Twitter accounts, and please use also the hashtag CRISPS project. I want already to let you know that you will have more information on both of these policy dialogue and the previous webinars on the IRF website, as well on the University of Birmingham website. We are recording this policy dialogue today, and we'll make the recordings and all the resources that will be shared available to you. If you are participating in this webinar, it means that we have your email address, so we will be emailing you, notifying you directly to let you know when all this and where all these resources will be available to you. If we move to the next slide, I want also to introduce our speakers for today. Dr. Gurmeet Gatahora is a senior lecturer from the University of Birmingham. Alemayehu Ndale is the Deputy Director General of the Ethiopian Roads Administration, and Bernard Obika, team leader of the High Volume Transport Applied Research program. We will be joined as well by Anne Jocelyn from FCDO, and we have also invited quite a number of different stakeholders who will be joining us for some short pre-scheduled interventions. With that, let me say that today policy dialogue is driven by a recognition of the need to accelerate action towards the goals of the Paris Agreement and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. It is widely accepted that climate change poses a critical threat to future development, particularly in the areas where poverty is widespread and infrastructure is either underdeveloped or vulnerable to extreme weather events. The body of scientific evidence indicates that climate change will increase the frequency and intensity of a range of extreme weather events. For example, sea level rise is predicted to result in storm surges in coastal areas. Heat waves are forecast to be more severe. Precipitation is estimated to increase in intensity. And we are all seeing that independently of where we sit today. The increased frequency and intensity of these extreme weather events can have a devastating impact on both human life and physical infrastructure, of course. The impact on road transportation systems can be particularly stark, leading to delay, disruption, damage, and potentially failure. This CRISPS policy dialogue is designed to encourage the development of evidence-informed policies to support the development of climate-resilient road infrastructure and identify an agenda for change. And so this dialogue today will provide an opportunity to learn more about the CRISPS project that I just mentioned. We'll leave the floor soon to Dr. Gatahora. And the efforts of the project to support the development of climate-resilient road pavement surfacing. It's meant also to help you understand the possibility and constraints for developing policies to support climate resilient road pavement surfacing in low and middle income countries, and then overall reflect on what the agenda for change for developing climate resilient road pavement surfacing would like. So I'm delighted to be joined today by our three panelists, Dr. Gurmel Gatahora, Ale Mayewo Endale, and Bernardo Bica. In the interest of time and extending my apologies to them, I will not make justice to the long and extensive career and achievements, and move immediately to the first presentation and pass the floor to Gurmel to reflect on what the CRISPS project is and why it matters. Gurmel, the floor is yours, and I believe you have some slides for us. Gurmel, if you can put on your camera as well and start sharing your screen. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this workshop. So my brief is to give a short 10-minute presentation on the CRISPS project. I have to say this is a very brief distillation of the work we're doing. To explain it all can take longer than a week. So let's get started. So the project partners, we have already had information that, we have a number of partners, which include the University of Auckland, UPM in Malaysia, Ethiopian Road Agency, and IRF. This was an 18-month project.
We're not seeing the slides.
You're not seeing the slides? Okay, let me go back and sort that out. Excuse me. Go back and let me share the screen again. Okay, can you see them now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So let's scroll through here. So this is the second slide showing you all the partners. And in addition to what was mentioned earlier, we also have Ethiopian Road Administration as a key partner in the project. So they started off as an 18-month project, but was extended to 30 months. And our brief is to look at road surfaces, new technology road surfaces that can be used in low-income countries to counter the impact of climate change. These new surfaces are modified epoxy chip seals, modified epoxy asphalt surfacing, and fibromastic asphalt. And I'll say a few words about each in a short time. These technologies are a result of many years of research in both New Zealand and Malaysia, and their in situ performance and lab work has all been carried out, and it has taken many years of work in these respective countries to develop these technologies, and they are now routinely used in service. So what's the key question we're trying to answer? The first one is, what is the expected performance with the three materials? And the second one is, what are the life cycle impacts of climate change on our roads? And finally, do they provide a better life cycle outcome? The project was set up such that there were four work streams. The first one looked at deterioration modeling. The second one looked at life cycle modeling. And then we had anti-fraud framework, which utilized techniques such as X-ray analyses and neutron analysis techniques. And then finally, we wanted to show that we can use these techniques to construct road pavements in low-income and developing countries. And this is where Ethiopia were key, because that's where the work is carried out. So we have an overarching project steering committee, and clearly information is disseminated through webinars and publications and so on. So the first technology is modified epoxy asphalt. In essence, it's a two-part mix. We have part A, which is the epoxy binder. Part B is modified bitumen. And we use these two materials in the upper layers of the road. So for us to use them, we need to make sure that whatever the structure of the road is, the underlying layers are sound. And then this sits at the top. So typically for epoxy asphalt, they may be 50 to 100 millimeter in thickness, depending on the type of road we're looking at. For epoxy chip seal, we still have a two-part mix. We have epoxy binder and we have the asphalt, and we spray these materials. So as with the normal chip seal, we have our mastic surface. We put a tack coat, and on top of it, we construct this layer using epoxy bitumen, and then we chip the road surface. So it's very simple. The only difference between these two materials, epoxy materials, and normal surfacing, is that we need two tanks, one for part A, one for part B, and we need to keep an eye on temperatures and so on. The third material we investigated utilizes fibers. These are cellulose fibers, and they're extracted from empty fruit bunch, and they're pelletized and then added to the pug mill to give us a product which is stronger and longer lasting. We used HDM4 for our analysis. This is a World Bank standard software which serves as a primary tool for road administration in the analysis, planning, management, and appraisal of road maintenance, improvement, and investment decisions. So in essence, it supports business level decisions. So we use the HDM4. Now, typically what we have are two types of scheme. Here is a scheme which has a lesser amount of input in terms of investment, but we have to do it more frequently. Then we can also do a higher level investment in and get a better product out of it, which doesn't require regular intervention. And if you look at the mean and you think about the condition of the road, the green one is going to give you a better average in terms of the road user cost, because a road is in better condition for a longer period. And the key thing about all this is that we need to look at deterioration modeling. HDM4 has very well developed deterioration models, and we need to find out how long this scheme will last, because the three materials we're looking at are at this end, the green curve. So we used data from the two countries where the techniques were developed. So we use information from New Zealand. They've been using these road surfaces for more than 2 decades now. And in Malaysia, they've also been using their FMA for many years now. So what we did was look at the deterioration models for new technologies and compared them with the conventional models. So we looked at what factors were involved and so on, and how much of an improvement there was. So typically we may have a deterioration equation, say, let's say y is equal to ax to the power of n. So when we look at conventional roads in New Zealand, for example, we may find that for their roads, we have y is equal to 1.5x to the power n. But when we then factor in the new materials, the equation may change to yx is equal to 4.5 ax to the power n, which is saying the roads last 3 times longer. So we developed these equations for various scenarios for New Zealand and then for Malaysia. We then calibrated using the default calibration models in HTM4 data for Ethiopia. So we then used the information we'd gleaned from the calibration work from New Zealand and Malaysia and applied it to Ethiopia. So this is the outcome. So here we're looking at the net present value. And on the y-axis here, we have got 3 roads. High traffic road, this is where we use asphalt. And medium traffic, this was for FMA. And medium traffic overlay, this is for the epoxy chip seal. And at the bottom here in the legend, you can see the darker blue is 10 years. All the other colors go from 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And you can see here that from our modeling work, for the first 10 years, the construction is costing more. It's not cost effective. But beyond 10 years, you can see this definite benefit. And for high volume roads. For medium volume roads, we can see for tropical humid climates, you are in a no wind situation for 10 years. And for chip seal, it's a win-win. So you can see clearly here that beyond 10 years, it's a benefit. It benefits immensely to put the new technologies road surfacings down. Now we're expecting the new technology road surfaces to last 30 plus years. So we are at this end of the spectrum in terms of semi-arid climate for high traffic roads. And in all of these, we are onto a winner. We also then factored in things like loading, corruption for the three types of surfacings. And you can see bar, couple of areas for the first 10 years, you are you're going to lose money. But if you are thinking, if we are expecting the roads to last longer, which we are, then we are onto a win-win situation. So with that, I will finish the slides by saying thank you to all the participants and in the project, especially to Ethiopia, and say if there are any queries, then please contact either Dr. Burrow or myself. And with that, I'll stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gurmel. I'm always impressed by how you can summarize in such a straightforward, condensed way, complex issues. You give me also an opportunity to, say a few words about Dr. Michael Burrow who's leading the project and unfortunately was not able to join us today. Gurmel, the CRISPS project clearly represents an ambitious research agenda from what you have presented, exploring a number of themes from pavement design to quality control and fraud prevention system, and involving a range of partnerships that cut across geographies and stakeholders group, which was also one of the core strength of this project. Your reflections on the importance of the developing approaches to pavement design that are better able to cope with more adverse weather conditions are clear. And I was I was struck by your points about the trade-offs between higher upfront costs versus longer-term reductions in costs associated with the maintenance. So in thanking you, maybe I will bring into the conversation now Bernard Obika, to reflect on some of the broader policy challenges that are faced by stakeholders looking to manage high-volume transport systems in a changing climate, and what is needed to address these. Bernard.
Thank you, Susanna, and thank you, Gomo. That was a really extremely interesting presentation. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Susanna, I think the high volume transport program is essentially about trying to provide insight into policy challenges associated with developing transport infrastructure today that is fit for tomorrow. So what that does mean in terms of challenges, we have to envision what the future looks like and see it from different perspectives. We're building transport infrastructure today for the future people and the young. We need to involve the young because we're building essentially a future for them. Transport infrastructure lasts a long time. So the decisions we make today, the impact will be felt long after many of us are probably not here. So those are the challenges. Rapid as it is, we're living in an era where transport is, I would say, undergoing quite an unprecedented change, call it revolution, if you like, be it from the point of view of the type of energies that we use for transportation in terms of EVs, hydrogen traction, autonomous vehicles, changes in the mobility trends, so that we really, in terms of the challenges, we need to try and see the future. We need better evidence space for decision making. That means we have to build more and more robust decision support systems that try to encourage stakeholders to have the willingness to experiment with new ideas, to be innovative, and to be, frankly, prepared to fail along the learning cycle. Climate change and what that means in terms of impact on transport system is clearly one of the biggest challenges we face with high volume transport systems. So in that respect, we need to understand what the climate change is doing and how it will impact on our infrastructure. That requires trying to see the future as it were through a crystal ball system. So to sort of just sum that up, the challenges are wide in a rapidly changing transport sector, overlaid with rapid changing climate and things like that. So the CRISPS program has been one of those projects that I believe has been tackling this and underpins the importance of seeing the future, because the surfacing and the top layer of the road surface comprises the most substantive cost of any road pavement. And we've not really seen much change in the technology over the past 200 years almost, since the macadam was initially invented. So I'll leave you with that, and I hope that sort of answers the question.
Thank you so much, Bernard. I see it in the meantime, I'm listening, but also checking the question and answer. I see some questions flowing in, and please continue to use that. Bernard, thank you for this insight into the high volume transport program and the policy challenges associated with developing transporting infrastructure today, but that can fit for tomorrow. And it resonated with me, and I couldn't agree more with the point you made about the stakeholders' engagement and the partnership to ensure that applied research undertaken in academic settings then is also available to policymakers to support their decision-making processes. And as you mentioned, this is particularly pertinent in the context of transport infrastructure, which is associated with substantial costs, and they're often designed to last for decades. The impact, as you mentioned, the impact of poor decision-making process or bad investment choices will have long-lasting ramification and cost. And I think history has already taught us that lesson. Thank you so much, Bernard. We'll come back to you here. I would like now to bring into the conversation Alemayehu from the Ethiopian Road Authorities to reflect on how ERA, so the Ethiopian Roads Administration, is engaging with the CRISPS project and how it is supporting the decision-making process associated with delivering transport infrastructure that is better able to cope with climate change.
Okay, thank you, Susanna. I think first let me start by reflecting on the responsibilities of the Ethiopian Roads Administration. We are generally responsible for the development of new road infrastructure and also the upkeeping of existing ones. So currently we are managing about 28,600 kilometers of road network and 5,600 bridges and over 42,200 culverts. That means drainage structures below 6 meters span. So the size of Ethiopia is about 1.129 square kilometer, which is roughly about 5 times the size of UK. And this definitely will cause some climate change reflections. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
I just closed my my video to make sure to enable the connection, the internet connection. Please go ahead.
Okay. So Ethiopia's climate typically is tropical, especially on the eastern part. Northeast and southeast part is lowland and is tropical. But on the highland, the central part, which is much cooler compared to the other part of the country. Therefore, ERA has a responsibility for an extensive road system, which passes across the vast geographic area, and also involves a range of climatic conditions. This significantly poses challenges in terms of how we manage our technical, human, and financial resources. Further to this, as you know, Ethiopia is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change, and projections suggest that in the future we will face increased frequency or intensity of extreme weather events, changes to season duration or seasonal precipitations, and also increased temperature. So the context in which ERA must make investment decisions is this complex. It's very complex and requires careful thought to ensure that the resources we have are used in the most efficient manner. As has been highlighted previously by our panelists, to make informed decisions, ERA requires support in accessing the evidence on what works and why, in terms of adapting our road infrastructure to the future climate. The CRISPS project has supported in this term ERA to access global evidence on innovations in road surfacing technologies and to execute in situ tests to test their application in the Ethiopian context. Whilst we can learn a lot from what partners have done before in other contexts, we need to also make sure that any decisions made are reflective of local contexts. Of course, we acknowledge existing equipment and capacities, and we need to develop this where necessary. And the dialogue we have had with our partners at the University of Birmingham around the constructability trials have been integral in this respect. The partnership has provided support to the capacity building of key ERA staffs through a project engagement in the constructability and also PhD opportunities. This is supporting the development and strengthening of culture of research in ERA, I would also like to mention at this point that we are developing a World Standard Road Research Center. This will also help us in further strengthening and developing the culture of research in Iran. This is also integral to the development of evidence-informed policies. Iran has invested heavily in ensuring that decisions are made based on the sound understanding of what the evidence is and how it can be applied in our context, in our local context, local climate and other parameters. Such investments in technical capacity of the staff take a very long time, but they are very, very essential. More broadly, the CRISPS project is facilitating the sharing of knowledge in north, south, north, and south manner. And we are partners in these projects, exporting our knowledge to other countries. This is a central objective of ERA moving forward, and we envisage supporting learning initiatives with partners in other contexts. These are, of course, one element of the efforts of ERA to make Ethiopia's road infrastructure more sustainable and should not be viewed in isolation. One area not highlighted so far is that for ERA to work closely with other initiatives in country to ensure the wider benefit of our interventions. For example, the development of new approaches can support job creation initiatives. We can consider how public transport support can be coupled with the development of new, better quality roads. And generally, it helps us in improving existing ways of developing and managing our road network. So what is clear is now we are generating evidence on best practices in climate resilient pavement surfacing in the CRISPS project. I believe such practices of generating new evidence and drawing best practices will be driving forces for change and help our decision makers to develop confidence and also to make informed decisions. So we must advocate for change in ERA and more broadly in government around the need to make upfront investment in our infrastructure that will deliver financial dividends in the future. So that's what we have for now. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I will come back to respond on them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alemayehu. Stay with us because I see in the question and answers, questions are coming in and we'll bring you back into the conversation. I'd like to keep, to walk the talk. I promised you time for question and answers. So let me first of all pause one moment and thank our panelists at this stage and please keep staying with us. I'd like to try and quickly, not even summarize, but just mention a couple of the themes that are evident from this discussion. First of all, the realities of climate change highlight that business as usual approaches are no longer acceptable. I think that's a fact, and the adverse weather conditions will increase in frequency, and those responsible, like ERA, for managing road infrastructure will need to reflect, as it has just been said, to reflect on what evidence they need to make informed decisions about how road pavement surfacing are designed and constructed. The second point is about experimentation and innovation in approaches to road pavement designs are and must be an integral element of developing climate resilient roads. To ensure the uptake of these new approaches, efforts must be made to sensitize decision makers and advocate for change, sometimes within their own organizations and institutions, as Alemayehu was just mentioning. And then the framing of policies must be attuned to local contextual realities and ways of working. You also mentioned that, Alemayehu, in your brief remarks, the use of approaches developed in one setting must be tested and refined in others. And this may involve acquisition of new skills, but also of equipment. Roads are an integral part of the functioning of society, but they are embedded into wider systems that are challenged by climate change. And so a system approach to the issue must be developed that understands how interventions being done in one area can support or undermine those in the others. Now, before we try to take a closer look at all these themes, let me now bring to the stage Anne Jocelyn from FCDO to share with us some initial reflection. Anne, there you are.
Yeah. Thanks, Susanna. So I won't take very long because it's more important that we hear from all of you than that you hear from me. But just let me say a little bit on why the UK's FCDO supports this work. So first, I want to thank the panel members and our chair for your really fascinating and eloquent contributions, and you've given us lots to think about. So I'd also like to thank all of the research partners, the HVT team, and all of you here today. I hope you're finding this all useful. So the FCDO has been funding transport research for decades. Many of you will know and will have used the overseas road notes, like Road Note 31 on road surfaces. The notes originated in the 60s to adapt UK expertise to suit tropical and subtropical conditions. More recently, we've supported road surfacing trials in rural areas under the Rural Access Partnership and its predecessor programs. And Gurmel mentioned the HDM4 software, which is currently being updated with our support. So the CRISPS work builds on a really strong history. Roads help to move goods to market. They help to move people to jobs, to education, to healthcare. But in recent years, resilient roads have become even more important than they were. We've talked a lot about increasing climate pressures, so I won't say any more on that. But as populations grow and people move out of poverty, these road surface improvements should also help the roads be more resilient to increasing traffic loads. So another benefit as we grow and develop. The multilateral development banks alone loan out about $20 billion a year. And that's a lot. The recent increase in interest rates and the increased pressure on national and subnational budgets means that we need to make every pound or every dollar, or in this context, every beer or every ringgit of investment go further. So making roads that last longer is vital to economic growth and prosperity. It's really important for us who fund the banks and to the banks themselves, but even more importantly, to those of you who are building and managing the roads. Perhaps you're taking out the loans and paying them back, but that it's so important that that money is invested in the best way with the most appropriate technologies and systems based on evidence and the strongest capacity to manage and to maintain the infrastructure. Being willing and able to do research and testing in your own context is also important for climate mitigation. We've talked about that a bit already. Last year, I went to the Highways UK trade show and knowledge fair. And one of my key goals was to learn about low carbon materials and how to decarbonize transport. What I learned is that a lot of the carbon in road construction is from the materials and the energy used to prepare them. So using warm mix versus hot mix bitumen, or using local materials to help reduce the carbon emissions from construction. That all means that you need to be able to test the materials you have available and combine them with global knowledge on new techniques and have the capacity to implement the results in policy and practice. Exactly what we've been talking about this morning. So we at the FCDO are really, really proud of this research project and the results that have been shared today. Bernard talked about thinking about the future. We're also starting to think about what we do next when the high volume transport program ends. So I'm here to listen to you and the challenges and opportunities that you raise to contribute to our own future thinking. And please, if you do find this research is useful and you put any of it into practice, do let us know. We'd really like to know that you're using this and that our research contributions are useful. So thanks very much, and back to you, Susanna.
Thank you, Anne. And yes, it seems like our audience is finding the project interesting. I have to say we have been welcoming quite large audiences from all over the world in the previous webinars as well. And I see plenty of questions coming in the question answer section. Okay, but as your chair, and moderator, I have, it's my duty to keep you within the time. So I'll try my best to make justice to all these speakers, panelists, and all of you are following us today. Now, I think at this stage and given the time, we can open up and enter the second part of the policy dialogue. And I would like now to now call to the stage some other stakeholders. As I mentioned at the beginning, when I open up, we have a number and a very diverse set of stakeholders that have been invited to make some contribution to this discussion. I'm fiddling with the Zoom functionalities, but I see that Teuns from the University of Auckland, who's also part of this project, is online. And I would like to invite Teuns to maybe to reflect on how evidence can be used to advocate for change in how road pavement surfacing are designed and constructed.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening from New Zealand. Good day wherever you are in the world. It is fantastic to be part of this. Also to the panel speakers, thank you very much for your very comprehensive yet succinct summary of the research project. I guess that there's a few key messages that I want to bring across. Is we have looked at a few isolated technologies. I saw there were some comments in the question and answer boxes about why didn't we look at concrete, why didn't we look at all other technologies? And I just want to make it clear that this wasn't so much of a technical investigation into different technologies and which technology worked the best where, but it was really the focus was around the investment side of things. We do know that all countries are budget constrained for investment into roads and the surfaces being the most expensive part of it. So what we have to do is to really understand the economics behind making decisions on the appropriate technology for the challenges that you face. For this project, obviously, we've looked at the fiber asphalts and also the epoxy asphalt, and primarily because of their ability to withstand quite high temperature buildups and the issues, addressing the issues that we've got on bitumen surfaces for that. It's a technology that does cost more, as you would expect, but at the same time, using the evidence on how we can prolong the life of the surface under these extreme weather conditions is certainly very helpful then to make more appropriate decisions on when is it cost effective to apply some of these technologies. I hope that answered the question, Susanna. I'm more than happy to elaborate a little bit more on something specific if needs to.
Thank you, Ted. I think we will bring you back as I saw you responded to some of the questions, but maybe for those in the audience, it will be interesting to do that also orally. But let me, we'll look at New Zealand. Let me move to Malaysia. I don't know if Ratna is with us. I don't think so, but I see that Noor Atika is online. I would like to ask Noor to jump into the conversation and reflect on the Malaysian experience of utilizing fibermastic asphalt and how policymakers were encouraged to adopt this approach, because I think that's really useful to many others listening to us today. Noor.
Okay, thank you, Susanna. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
All right, thank you. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself first, as because Prof. Anasami is not here. So I will take his place for a while waiting for him to join us. So my name is Noor Atika. I am postgraduate student in the research of FMA modeling performance in Ethiopia. Okay, I am supervised under Prof. Anasami that's supposed to join us today, but he cannot join us today. Hopefully he can join us later. So let's continue with the FMA. I will start with the introduction, first of all, to FMA. Okay, some background on fiber mastic alpha, or we can call that the short form, we can call that FMA. So this technology was developed way back in 1996 to 2000. Okay, the issue at that time actually was abundant availability of empty fruit bunch, or we call that EFB, that become waste material that causing environmental concern. So University Putra Malaysia, UPM, was given a grant by Ministry of Science and Technology Malaysia to study the use of it for road construction. So the EFB was converted then to cellulose oil palm fiber with size ranging from 50 Newton meter to 75 Newton meter. So the cellulose fiber was then pelletized and used in the formulation of fiber mastic asphalt or FMA. So the first trial was in 2000, in year 2000, funded by Public Works Department of Malaysia, and it is performing. Okay, after several projects were undertaking, and it showed remarkable performance from the projects. So over the last 10 years, the FMA was used on roads with serious damage due to climate problem, especially the temperature and also moisture. The FMA performance is turned out to be a very promising climate resilient road mixture technology. So the local authority of Malaysia saw this as a good climate resilient technology that can be implemented in the country. So FMA is already part of the Malaysian road construction specification. For a good sample of FMA climate resilient performance are some of the roads that we use FMA in Malaysia. The first one is the Senai Desaru Expressway. Okay, which the pavement had serious moisture and temperature induced failure. Okay, with use of the FMA, the problem is solved. Okay, the second project that I can give you is the KLIA 2, okay, Kuala Lumpur International Airport 2, where the parking bay, okay, the parking bay had serious problem damage, again due to the climatic heavy rain. Okay, heavy rain and also extreme temperature. Most of the previous effort by the airport authority to fix the problem failed. Okay, but when they apply FMA, when FMA was used, the problem is solved. Okay, so recently, maybe I think just within 2 months before this, a road stretch in Cameron Highland in Malaysia, which is we can say that that part is cold, okay, in cold region because of the highland, so it was cold, was resurfaced with the oil palm fiber, okay, and the temperature with at the Cameron Highland is within 16 to 22 degrees Celsius, so it's quite cold there. Therefore, at there we use FMA technology, and still the problem was solved by using FMA. So as I can conclude here, FMA is very promising technology that is climate resilient technology. That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Noor, for bringing in the Malaysian experience. Let's move to now to Getashev. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, because I'd like to bring in a perspective of funders and donors, and ask Getashev if he can hear us and open up his microphone and the camera, whether he can reflect more broadly on the challenges and opportunities of addressing climate change from the World Bank perspective, and how a system approach that we mentioned throughout the panel conversation at the beginning of the webinar, a system approach to the issue could actually deliver dividends. There you are.
Thank you, Susanna, and I would like to thank everyone for this interesting research. Actually, when we see the climate change challenges to counter this climate change, the first thing is finance, climate finance for me. Climate finance, when we see countries who are vulnerable for this climate change effect, are most of developing countries. They don't have the resource to mitigate or adapt this climate change impact. So we need to pool this finance to help those developing countries. So every year we see that the countries gather and pledge to provide some financial support to those developing countries, but promises are not properly addressed, as you know. So for this, we need to have a collaborative approach, countries to be accountable in a manner that is thinking for others, not only thinking for one country or other country. As you know, the CO2 emission is a global impact. One country emits and the other will be impacted because of this CO2 emission. So we need to have some accountability issue in our global activities. I suggest actually to have some institute to regulate those climate agenda and bring some countries who are accountable, some private corporates who are responsible for exploiting natural resource to pool money or to resource those developing countries. So this is my initial reflection. Climate finance is critical to challenge this climate impact of our globe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think we will come back to that in a few moments. It's a critical part. But I see also that we have online Mpati Makoa from the, if I'm not mistaken, from the South African National Roads Agencies. And I think we have also Momodu Tsengore from Gambia National Roads Authority. I'd like them to feel free to join the conversation and share their experience as a road agency themselves. Mpati, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good day, everyone. I can hear you, Susanna. Thank you. A very fascinating discussion, I must say. And there's a lot that I'm already reflecting on. And I concur with a lot of statements, if not all, of the speakers today. And I just also want to highlight Sunroll is also on the same road, excuse the pun. We have a research and innovation program whose vision is to use research and innovation to ensure that our road transport system creates an enabling environment and delivers a safe, efficient, reliable, and resilient national road system. And I think, as with the Ethiopian Road Agency, we have to also work within the context of our own constitution, national development plans, and our own climate situations and other challenges, skills development. I think in South Africa, we struggle with, well, the engineering fraternity being overloaded. You know, we have one engineer per 2,600 people, and this is like dating back to about 2019, the stats. We have insufficient new entrants, especially when it comes to gender and the young. And, you know, Black people. So we have like frozen demographics. We also have, you know, dwindling resources, not just money, but the traditional road materials, we recognize that those are also contested because of competing land uses. We also want to use partnerships and optimize current research facilities and existing education institutes as partners in this regard. Obviously, we are also acutely aware of climate change and the ravages that it's creating. We're already seeing increased rains in our country. So we really understand the call to accelerate action in this regard. Thank you. I think I'll leave it there for now. Thanks, Susanna.
Thank you so much, Bati. Yes, I hear you. And that's exactly the problem. It's something we see as well when it comes to road safety, you know, competing agendas, shrinking of budgets. It's not easy. And I think it was mentioned before in the conversation, to even within the country, within its own road agency and institution, to sometimes get the right attention for certain topics or certain investments that need to be done. And projects like this one, this type of dialogue is exactly what helps actually that understanding. And I feel it's really a lot about getting that understanding and changing the narrative around those issues, because they might just be dismissed as, okay, we need an investment to do some tests and trials, while, as we have just demonstrated with the previous panel speakers, this is about long-term investments that benefit society at large under many different perspectives. If I may, and quickly to do so, since we're lucky enough to have representatives from Gambia, Kenya, and I believe Sierra Leone. Maybe I can pull into the conversation Monica Abonio from the Kenya Roads Authority. Monica, from your, I hope you can hear us well. From your experience with Kenya. Monica, can you hear us? Your microphone is closed.
Yes, I can hear you. Maybe if you could just repeat the question. Sorry.
Yes, I just wanted to pull in the conversation and to hear from what's your experience in Kenya vis-a-vis these issues, and what are the challenges that you face within the organization, within the institutional settings, to draw attention? Is it just a question of budgets, or is there an issue as well of understanding truly the importance of these type of topics?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. As said, my name is Monica. I work for Kenya National Highways Authority, a government agency responsible for construction and management of national trunk roads. Kenya is a country that has diverse climatic conditions. I think maybe typical to what is there in Ethiopia. We have places where the temperatures are quite high, considered as arid. Also, we have places where are in the highlands. So temperatures quite vary. And traditionally, the country has been relying on the traditional methods of construction, where now we use the normal bitumen. But with the effect of the climate change, I think there is really greater need for us to focus on a lot of research to develop materials and also to innovate materials that will be resilient to climate. And it is true, as a country, I think this is an area that we need to focus on, considering that as a developing country, and also with the effect of decline in economy, the resources are not always available. So any collaboration into research for with the main objective of developing materials that will be suitable for the Kenyan condition will be greatly welcomed.
Thank you very much, Monica. I see the clock ticking, and so many things would like to discuss. Please, Peter and Mamadou Senghore, if you'd like to come into the conversation now to share also your experience, respectively in Gambia and Sierra Leone, please do so. Otherwise, I might now turn. Yes, Peter. Yes.
If you would go on with Modu first.
Mamadou Senghore, please go ahead.
Yes.
I think we have a problem with the connection. I don't hear you. Let me give the floor to Peter, who seemed to be.
Yes, go ahead. Peter, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Modu, can I go ahead?
Yes, Peter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So once more again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the entire audience, everybody, depending on where we are. Let me say again, thanks so much to the coordinator. As time is in premium, I will just move straight. Firstly, it's a very valuable topic, and to which I think when the whole program started, we were lucky at Sierra Leone that we were asked to consent whether we would want to be part of this high volume transport research. So the CRISP one coming now, it's such a valuable outcome. However, there's been so much been discussed. I'll just focus on maybe two. First of all, Sierra Leone Roads Authority. I work with Sierra Leone Roads Authority where I am the Director of Asset Management. Initially, I served as the Director of Rural Roads. So I'll touch a little bit about that because there was another research on low volume roads that came out with some outputs which are valuable. And currently our country is going through a lot of transition. As you all know, we came from a war that meant that the entire asset and network was left for a while without attention. So from when we had peace, we've been gradually trying to improve them. So we already facing the situation which is coming as a result of climate change. Because we begin to see that as much as our supporters, donors are helping us to build our roads, we begin to realize that we're now having serious and extreme weather, a lot of precipitation than usual. We're experiencing landslides and other situations, and of course, overtoppling of bridges and culverts and stuff like that. But what I want to draw my attention quickly to is what the gentleman is either Gatechu mentioned, about climate financing. Certainly, Sierra Leone is looking towards this direction. We hope that there will be some control medium that that will be able to regulate and make sure that low-income countries like Sierra Leone would benefit from some kind of climate financing situation. Because in reality, I followed the presentation of Dr. Gomel. And you would see clearly he's showing you that the advantage of this research is good. There's some high upfront cost, but then there's so much to benefit. If you follow those ones going forward, which was a good idea. But in a country like Sierra Leone and an institution like the Roads Authority, bulk of our major development, we do get support, from donor partners, be it the World Bank, the EU, Islamic Development Bank, Badir, African Development Bank, and the others. So you often hear the issues of we have to downsize, we have to review, we have to calm down in order for you to fit within certain budget lines. Again, the government is constrained. You cannot borrow beyond some limit because of IMF conditionalities and things like that. So consequently, what it does is that it's actually seemed to take the attention of central government, away from, getting into new development, which they love though. I must mention, we've observed that most of the central government that have come in, by we've been having change of government from time to time. There's a fair democracy going on, but a lot of central government that comes in, they focus on new road construction, And rather than focusing on the, maintenance or sustainably keeping existing roads, which are rapidly deteriorating because of the very rapid change in the environmental situation. So the issue we have is once you have high upfront costs, like the wonderful output that this project is bringing up in Ethiopia, and you have partners like recently Badir telling us that, oh, you have to cut down, in order for you to be within this bracket, you have to slow down, you have to reduce, you have to actually, descope some works and things like that. So you end up realizing that we tend to follow a little bit more what the donor partners does. And that's where I want to jog in. It's a Richard, one of the lead. It's a Richard. The presenters that presented after Dr. Gomel, where you asked him about the policy issues. It will be, we're hoping that at the end of the day, efforts will be made, to bring on board, because the uptake, this is really what I want to talk about, the uptake after all this wonderful output, all this wonderful research, the uptake for low-income countries, that depends so much on donor support. So if you have the donors, they come in and then they are able to, they acknowledge this wonderful research and bring it as conditionalities, then you are sure that, the uptake will be there. And then we will now be able to learn from the wonderful works that have been done in Ethiopia, and we'll be able to get from it. And let me just mention one quickly about the low volume road research, because again, this is another research being done. Of course, RECAP, funded by DFI extensively. And Sierra Leone was one of 3 countries, that benefited significantly from that. A lot of work was done, a lot of research, a lot of findings came, and a lot of guidance as to how we could actually develop low volume roads, in a more sustainable way. And we have all these materials and information. Now, when it gets to the uptake, much of funding here in terms of low volume road development and management comes from the World Bank and comes from the EU. Most of it, a few more comes here and there. With central government, making very minimal contribution in terms of direct funding. However, the very EU itself, the World Bank itself, we observed significantly that they did not bind so much to the outcome or the output that came from the low volume research. They rather followed different paths. So maybe that's the key thing, in the policy section. How do these important partners that most of the time fund a lot of these development programs, how do they buy into this wonderful output and bring it as maybe a condition under which, they would work on? And so I'll end with Dr. Gomez. If you have, for instance, African Development Bank, you have the World Bank and the EU, most of whom are supporting or sponsoring a huge number of the major development, of high volume roads that are going on now in the country. If they buy into the outcome or the output from this kind of research, and they see that, and they make sure that we could bring this into, the way we go forward, and they're willing to be relaxed, that yes, it's a high upfront cost, but then the benefit is extensive, then you would see that all these efforts would come out to something. Let's not have a situation like we're having now, the low volume roads, so much work that was done, materials are available, but we're struggling to get the important donor partners that support us to buy into it and then, follow those tracks. I'll stop for now and then maybe I'll come in as we go.
Thank you so much, Peter. Spot on, I think, on quite a number of the issues we have been discussing today. If I hear you properly, it's, we've been talking about implementation challenges, and here from all of you, with the testimony from the different countries, I still hear that we have quite some work to do when it comes to creating a culture and the knowledge around these issues for you, for those of you who are the managers and are in a position to go to the minister as well with the evidence. And that's the second point, bringing the evidence, which is exactly what this project has been doing with the trials, showing that this is not just pure academic research, it works and it delivers value, economic value too. And the third one is about the facilitating the synergies. You mentioned it, Peter. We need greater synergies when it comes to research, but greater synergies as well that can help policymakers also make the right decisions and draft policies accordingly. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to recall as well that IRF actually, the International Road Federation, is ensuring the survival of the website and all the resources. So the recap website is still up and running and alive, and we look forward to add more resources as they become available. The same goes for the Global Transport Knowledge Partnership, which is also a UK-funded project of many years ago, and that we still keep alive and start compiling in there and connecting all these bits and pieces of research sorry, into this portal to make them available. But we need events also like this. We need this type of dialogue to bring that knowledge out of the simple report for how important they can be. I see three hands up, I think. First of all, I need to give the floor to Momodou Senghore. Then I take Bernard and Gurmel. Momodou, are you with us?
Yes, Susanna, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. I am happy to be part of this conversation, really. And I would want to start by saying hello to Dr. Gurmel, and of course, all the participants, who are here with us. Well, I am from the Gambia, and I work for the National Roads Authority. Our responsibility is similar to, any roads authority, of course, in sub-Saharan Africa, and that is to we are responsible for the design and maintenance of all, road networks of the country. Well, the Gambia, as you know, is a small country, and our network size is barely less than 6,000 kilometers. And in terms of climate conditions, the climate condition of the Gambia is tropical, and you know what that means. A lot of rainfall from June to October, with a lot of course, winds. And these are effects that, of course, has a lot of negative impact when it comes to roads, the road network. And more so in the rural areas where most of the roads, the rural network is not surface. When it rains, flood levels rise in most of the areas, especially in the capital, which is barely less than 2 meters above the sea level. So we're confronted with a lot of course, climate issues when it comes to the road infrastructure. But currently what we are doing is to see what we can do through research and other developments to see how best we can develop materials, of course, that will resist some of these effects. One of the challenges we have is drainage issues. When it rains, most of the areas get flooded. So when we build roads, we have to concentrate and make sure drainage networks are incorporated in the design, to counter this effect of climate change. The other issues we have is, of course, funding. Recently, we have funding from what we call the Green Climate Fund to be able to carry out some research and, of course, implement some of course, the countermeasures against, of course, climate change issues. We're also trying to get funding from the World Bank to see where we can develop further and carry out research into these areas to see how best we can counter climate again. As I said, if you know the proximity of the Gambia, we of course, we are situated on the west coast of Africa, very close to the Atlantic Ocean. So, of course, we are also being affected by, of course, high rise in sea levels. Part of the seafront, of course, it's been eaten up by, of course, the rise in volume. So we begin to lose part of our seafronts, which are, of course, very critical when it comes to tourism, one of the economic sort of backbones of the Gambia, next to agriculture. So in a nutshell, I think I'm in agreement with most of the participants. The issues are similar, and of course, the challenges are all the same. So we're here to, well, I'm here with some colleagues, and we want to listen to what other people have to say in terms of experience, so that we can also learn from them, as they would also may learn from us. I will stop here for now and allow others to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mamadou. I think Bernard had raised his hand. Bernard,
Yeah,
you wanna...
I did, Susanna, thank you very much. I'd just like to pick up on some really very important points that Peter Comey made. I think it's really important to state that research projects such as the CRISPS are essential business. Are essential. Business as usual approaches to transport are just no longer feasible. Losses associated with transport system that is functioning in suboptimal manner can place excessive strain on government finances. In particular, the need to maintain road infrastructure that is subject to stresses and strains of hot weather and the climatic regime that we're looking at in terms of drainage can place huge strains on the economics. So when we talk about sort of some of the IFIs, and I think you mentioned the World Bank perhaps not being receptive to new ideas, innovations, and so on, it's really important that recipients of soft loans and concessionary loans are insistent because on new technology, on innovation, and if necessary, seek the evidence from research organizations such as University of Birmingham to back up their contention and to really argue their point in trying new techniques and research evidence. Because quite often the task managers who maybe run this operation may not be aware of those technologies, and there may be a tendency for them to put their own views and aspects. Their primary object is quite often to disperse the fund and disperse it as quickly as possible so they can move on to the next project. That doesn't mean to say that they are not unprofessional in their approach, but it just means that that's the nature of things. So it really is quite important that we sometimes have to insist and draw on the evidence that is presented by the researchers, such as the CRISPS and so on, to back up the stance they take.
Thank you, Bernard. And we haven't had the chance to talk about procurement processes here because they actually play a crucial role as well in that respect. We have seen this in Europe, where a reform of procurement processes can give a push and spur that innovation that, as you said, Bernard, sometimes doesn't really happen because you know, project after project, we just tend to do the things in the more traditional way, and then procurement in our sector in general, it's quite old-fashioned, if I can say so. There's a lot of technology coming into our sector, but the way we deliver projects has still remained very traditional in that respect. Gurmal has his hand up. Gurmal, please go ahead. And we have 9 minutes left for plenty of questions.
Hopefully I won't take 9 minutes. I wanted to respond to some of the points raised, particularly by Peter Comey. And to some extent, Bernard has answered that. And that really was that projects like the CRISPS project are quite important in terms of climate resilience. We are trying out technology that's not been tried in countries, in low-income developing countries. And from a sort of research point of view, sadly, this project only goes as far as proving that these technologies can be constructed. it would have been very useful to have a longer duration project where we can monitor how these roads have performed. At the moment, that's inverted commas theoretical piece of work, and you saw some of the data there. Now the idea here, we're working closely with ERA, is that once the trials have been constructed, they'll be monitoring these sections of roads, and we'll be able to modify some of the information you've seen presented there. And we'll have sort of country-specific deterioration models and so on. So I think that's quite important. So this sort of work forms like a template. And at the end, when we produce a report, it'll have all sorts of information about the challenges we faced, how we overcame them, and how there were some challenges we couldn't overcome, but what can be done to overcome them. And so, and what ERA are doing post end of project, if you like. Because if the information gleaned from monitoring is valuable, then there is every chance that ERA will incorporate these sort of techniques into their standards, as people in Malaysia and New Zealand have done. So these things take time, but it does require investment, and it does require collaboration. Sometimes you have to walk not just the extra mile, but extra 2 or 3 miles to get the thing done. And I think that's very, very important for all the partners involved. So I think I'll just stop there and let others ask questions in the remaining 8 minutes. Thank you very much, Suzanne.
Thank you, Gurmail. Yes, we'll come back to the questions. I see there are lots of technical questions, while right now I just want to spend 1 or 2 minutes more on these aspects about the partnerships, the collaboration, which is needed also to, well, which is particularly needed, I would say, in a context, in an environment where resources are shrinking, the effects of climate change are hitting hard. And I've heard many of these speakers from the different countries telling us that they need that knowledge and that type of collaboration. It's something that we, in our experience as IRF here as well, we have in fact created within the Federation what we call an IRF Innovation Committee, where we create a platform for people to come and exchange that knowledge and about this new research, new products. We also have an IRF Africa board that allows us to interact with some of the key players in Africa, whether they are the UN agencies or the multilateral development banks or the research. We brought in the Transportation Research Board as well, in fact, to try and facilitate the dialogue and collaboration, which I feel from this conversation has come up very strongly, would greatly benefit the work of many of you in Africa or in general low and middle income countries. So my question to all of you, also relating to some of the question answers that I see in the question answer function, how do we facilitate more that type of south or north to south or south to north type of exchange and collaboration? If anyone wants to respond to that. Certainly stretching the CRISPS project will be one, but I believe for FCDO and Bernard, who is handling leading the HBT program, I think it's a good reflection point on the next phase, right? As you just said at the beginning of the conversation.
So sorry, Susanna, could you just remind me of your question again in terms of just sort of the thrust of your question?
The question is a question open to everyone, because I see many of the comments in the chats and the comments from the speakers here. And the point is, how do we facilitate even more? CRISPS is one project. The high volume program has done tremendous work, and I can testimony myself because we have been involved in some of those projects. But maybe one point, Bernard, as you start reflecting on what's next after the HVT program, that's also one of the key issues. How do we facilitate that dialogue? I think it was also Peter's reminding us of the importance of having all the different agencies, banks coordinating, so that it doesn't stay, as is often happens, just a project here and there, but that we all learn to coordinate.
Yeah.
1 minute, and then I take Simon, and then Teus, and then I need to close.
It's a very good question, Susanna. Thank you very much. And it is really one, and I'm sure it's the one that FCDO is thinking about all the time. As Anne said earlier on, there is in the pipeline another sort of successor to HVT, but I'm sure one of the things that FCDO will be thinking how it links to the HVT, the new program links to the HVT, and indeed how HVT links to the recap, which was mentioned by Peter Kone in terms of what that does to the linkages. But the common strand is all of this is, of course, the relationship we have with organizations such as the IRF, where we have the platform. The HVT publications are kept on the IRF platform. That includes sustainability. And we also work the Sustainable Mobility for All consortium, which again tries to sort of string all those sort of inputs together and for the longer term benefit. But there is, I accept, some additional thinking to be done along there so that we have continuity and so on.
I see now the debate is getting heating, it's heating hard, and we're heating 29. Simon, because you have not had the floor, and then I'll take quickly the others. Simon, welcome. Simon,
thank you very much, Susanna, and an excellent discussion today on this subject. As an ex-World Banker, I just wanted to come in with some ideas on how do we create this collaboration. I think one thing that has happened in Ethiopia, for example, is that there's a lot of collaboration between the research programs funded by the FID, FCDO, and IFI programs. And I think that can be extended much, much further. In Southeast Asia, for example, we had very close collaboration between the research programs looking at surfacing trials, World Bank projects putting in projects, looking to finance those findings from the research projects. So I think there can be better collaboration between specific IFI projects and these research programs. Secondly, I think we need to put a lot more emphasis on local design and construction industry. One of the things that I saw is that the local design just wasn't good enough in order to address these climate issues. Basic drainage, for example, is just not designed into most roads. So I really think we have to spend much more time building the capacity of local design industry. They can bring in all of this research, then, because we can't do it road by road. There has to be a local industry that does this. So I think investing in that industry will be a big part of implementing these findings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon, and I couldn't agree more. We've seen this in all fields. Road safety is the same thing. So lots of projects, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to change the design standards in the country to be able to to align to those road safety or climate change requirements. Teus, can you please hold your hand, and Peter quickly, because I'd like to give the floor to Alemayehu and Dale. His hand is also up. Alemayehu, you want to come forward?
Okay, thank you, Susanna. I just wanted to reflect on the further collaboration and implementation of these individual projects. We had experience, or at least we tried to form an institution to collaborate all these different types of efforts during the RECAP or AFCAP projects funded by DFID, which is ARTRF, we call it Africa Road and Transport Research Forum, which didn't go further. But the idea was to collaborate between the countries to share knowledge, to share experiences, and to do collaborative researches together, so that the outcomes will be disseminated through different partner countries, so that it can be implemented. As Getachew has said earlier, it's good to institutionalize this effort and also draw funding, sustainable funding, so that this collaboration will further strengthened and be sustainable. That's what I wanted to reflect on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alemayehu. Teus, 10 seconds, and then...
Yes, now very quick one. I just want to make the audience aware of a parallel piece of work that was undertaken through the HVT program, and that was the rewrite of the Road Note 31 design guidelines, which includes quite a bit of information on design, the road design, but also surfacing options for climate. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding that. Super important information. Peter, quickly in 5 seconds.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think more importantly, Simon mentioned something very important, which I think we should take up. He did say the bank worked along with structures, the World Bank in particular, in Asia, and they were there ready to support once you had outcome from research, to support it to sure it goes down. I also jumped at what Bernard said. When we were fortunate in Sierra Leone that we were invited officially as the Sierra Leone Roads Authority to want to take part in the HVT research, which we accepted. So we think one way forward also is that once reports are out, that we will be informed properly, and possibly we could arrange, like what Sengo has done in Gambia right now, that the entire authority and other colleagues are waiting. We could have a presentation to train stakeholders, as to, all of this. And once more, end with what Simon said again, training the local designs. You have consultancies and firms, these are the ones that are available for procurement purpose to design. So once everybody buys in, then you can be sure. And I think I'm happy with what Ethiopia is doing. We hope this partnership would carry on, and so that we could share knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Peter. And that allows me, because we're already beyond the time, fascinating conversation that I'm bringing to a conclusion. I'm not going to try to wrap it up because it would be impossible, but I want to use these few seconds left to thank, first of all the speakers, all of you who have also participated, so the audience, please rest reassured, we're going to take all the technical questions that were posed in the Q&A section and post them into the website. Please, all of you, be reminded that there's a LinkedIn group, so this conversation can keep going. All these exchanges we have been having today can keep going with the LinkedIn group. We'll make sure we'll provide you again the links to that. Recordings as well will be shared, and I think, as some of the colleagues have flagged out in the answers already, all the reports will be soon available to you as well. My final word is also to thank, of course, the High Volume Transport Program, FCDO, for giving us, not only for financing this important piece of research, but for giving us the opportunity to have this dialogue today. I see that Alemayehu is still his hand up. I don't know if it's from before.
No, it's from before, sorry.
Yes, and thumb up. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. And we'll keep going, and we'll keep this conversation going through successive webinars, but also through the knowledge repository and the LinkedIn and the social media. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you also to the teams, Agostina, William, in the back scene, who have done a lot of work to deliver this webinar. Thank you to all of you, and goodbye from Dar es Salaam.